I always wonder in this story, how did Jesus do it? How did Jesus multiply those 5 bread and 2 fish to feed 5,000 people? Then I'm thinking and I'm wondering and I try to understand and I realize I don't know. I do not know how it happened. But what I recognize in myself when I'm getting too hung up on the how it happened, I forget the other parts of this very story that I know something about. So I'm inviting you to let the how a little bit go, even though that is right there, and move to the why did Jesus do it, and also look at the other characters in this very story of the feeding of the 5,000. Now, why did Jesus do it? Plain and simple, there are hungry people there. They are hungry. And hunger comes in various forms. Hunger comes as physical hunger. You're just hungry, so you need something to eat. But hunger also comes for being hungry and longing for a good friend, to have someone whom you can trust, someone who cares for you, someone whom you can tell anything, everything, and they still care for you. So longing for a friend, hunger for a friend, hunger for a community, hunger for someone who cares, someone who understands you, someone who gets it, what you feel like. So there is that kind of hunger. And then there is something of hunger of our hearts and souls. And that is a hunger, a longing in me that I know of. No food, no other person can really feed that deep longing in my heart. Now, other people can help me with that when we're together in that, but there is a hole in my heart, the shape of God. That's what Pascal said, one of the 1600 people. So there is a hole, there is a longing in our hearts that only the living God can fill. So hunger comes in various forms, and whatever you and I are hungry for and longing for and craving for and yearning for, that's why Jesus is doing it. And my personal experience is that when we come, when we open up with our longing, somehow, in some way, God provides, and God may use you and others to provide for that longing in you. So this is the very focus when we focus on the crowd of the people. And you notice in the previous or at the beginning of this scripture, it says, many people were following Jesus. So there was some invitation, some curiosity, something they wanted to hear and understand and get from Jesus. So there is this longing. What are you craving for? What are you longing for? What are you hungry for? I think each and every one of us has those parts in us, don't we? We do. Just like the crowd, and we come to Jesus with that longing. And it's good that we can come with that, and that we can trust, and that in some way we know deep down that God is faithful, God will provide. Give an example of one of my friends that I got to know years ago. He had a mother who was hurting in her own way, a mother who grew up from her family of origin as very needy because she did not get enough attention and care from her mother and grandmother. So she was not able to be a good enough mother for my friend. And he was longing and wanting to get that mothering, that nurturing from her, but somehow she was not able to provide for him what he really needed. So what do you do with that? You go, you're longing, you go to the well and the well is dry and you don't get fed or don't get nurtured there. What do you do with that? Some of it you try through friendships, through fellowship, through partners, through other means to open up with that. And then also opening up to the living one who hopefully in some way nurtures and feeds our souls as we need and as we're longing for. That's the crowd. Now, how about we focus in this very story on this boy? Let's call him Johnny. John is just running with the crowd. He's just curious. He tries to see Jesus. He's so curious. And he notices the challenged disciples. He notices that Jesus is asking Philip, what are we going to do? You feed them. It's almost like Jesus is challenging Philip. And Philip and the disciples look at each other and wonder, like, how are we going to pull this off? It's impossible. It's just beyond what we can do. But this little boy, what a beautiful attitude Johnny has. Maybe his mother just packed him a lunchbox. And when it says 5 loaves, it's like this flatbread. So think of 5 tortillas or 5 pita breads. Pack them in, get 2 fish. Go, I will see you tonight again. And Johnny goes and Johnny hears about the need. He hears that there is a whole bunch of people here and they're hungry. So what does Johnny do? He opens his lunchbox and he gives what he has to help with the need. Even though the need is so much bigger, so much greater than any one of us can imagine and that any one of us could satisfy and provide for, this little Johnny does it in faith. He doesn't ask or doesn't look at the overwhelming need. He doesn't see like, well, what will my little lunch do for a whole bunch of people? He doesn't have that attitude. Johnny has the attitude, what can I do? How can I help? How can I contribute? You see that childlike faith, that childlike attitude that he wants to share, he wants to help, he wants to do his part. What a beautiful example we have in little Johnny, don't we? Do what you can. Start where we are. Use what you have. I like that motto. Our conference minister shared it when she was here. So start where we are, start where you are, do what you can, use what you have. Very practical. Have your lunchbox, opening up help. Very practical, this little boy, and does it in faith. And I think we can learn from children. We as grown-ups, when we are sometimes overwhelmed or when we think like it's impossible, get that childlike attitude that, yes, we can do something. We may not be able to do it all, but we can contribute, do our part to make it happen. Let's move on from the little boy to the disciples. And they have a very interesting role in this story. The disciples build the bridges. They make the connections. They are the movers going out. So the disciples see the crowd. The disciples are connected with Jesus. The disciples connect with a little boy. It's almost like they're the gophers, the honeydews, the ones who get the things done, the actual work. Now, the first thing that these disciples, and they were pretty much grown up, reasonable, smart people. Well, as smart as fishers can be. Yeah. There is a lot of street smart in that. They didn't go to college, no. They were street smart. They got it. They have been a lot around the block a few times. They knew what they were talking about. So the first thing, the rational, the logical thing, I see you smiling there. I see you smiling there. And it loves me. I wish I would have your questions. But these disciples, they see that this is not going to work. This is not going to work. One lunch, a bunch of people, it's not going to work. So what do? They say to Jesus, this won't happen. And Philip, when Jesus says to him, feed them, Philip says, that's not going to work out. Half a year of wages it would take. So think of minimum income, whatever, $25,000. So 12,500 would feed 5,000. So that's about $2.50 per person per meal. So you think like, can do that, but it takes a whole lot to make that happen, a whole lot. And don't we sometimes feel like the disciples when we see the need, see the hunger, see the longing, see the children, see the youth, and we wonder sometimes, we can't do it. We cannot do it. That's what it feels like. And I think the disciples are very honest, very down to earth, and say, no way we can pull this off. But what Jesus says, well, let's get started. Let's do what we can, not what we cannot do. So it's just starting, doing our little part, and keep doing it, and in the doing, in the sharing, somehow it happens that each and every one of the crowd gets something and gets fed, gets nurtured, gets some of their hearts and souls longing filled. It's like when Mother Teresa once was asked, well, how can we ever feed these thousands and thousands and millions of people who are really hungry? How can we do that? Well, she said, one at a time. Start with one. And you may do it with one person, and your friend may do it with someone, and as we start and do that moving, some transformation happens. Or Pope Francis, he was asked, well, how come we always pray for the hungry people and for the poor ones? And he said, well, yes. First you pray for them, then you feed them. Praying and the action that results from it, they're not opposites, they belong together. Or, as a good friend of Ruth Herman once said, Pastor, faith can move mountains. We learned that. But don't forget the shovel, to take your shovel with you. How did Jesus do it? I don't know. But I deeply believe, and I've experienced it myself, that like the crowd who is longing, who is hungry for various things, and I know that hunger is in me too, the hunger of my soul. I also know that, like little Johnny, I can do something. I can do something. And just like the disciples, my role to start where I am, to do what I can with what I got, it makes all the difference in the world. In which role do you see yourself? And where and how will you participate in Jesus' miracle?